Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Therapist Take podcast. I know it isn't typical for me to record an intro to our podcast, but we had such an incredible conversation with our friend and colleague, Whitney Alexander, that it ran much longer than we expected it to. So instead of cutting out a lot of great content, I decided that why not just make it into 2 episodes? So that's what we're going to do. So a few weeks ago, Whitney, our guest, reached out to me and pitched this idea about doing an episode where we actually talk about what it's like for us as therapists to just, go through life after hearing the stories and working with the clients that we work with. And I thought that's a great idea. And it turned out to be a great episode and probably the most vulnerable episode we've recorded to date. So in this episode, which is part one of a two-part series, we're going to talk about, first of all, how our clients' stories have shaped us. And then we're going to move into talking about the emotional weight that we carry sometimes from doing this work. In part two, which I hope you'll tune into, we're going to talk about the reality of therapists practicing what they preach, as well as revealing the human being that is the therapist. So as I said, this is a very insightful discussion. It's a vulnerable discussion, which I'm sure you'll experience that from us as you watch it or listen to it. But there's also going to be moments of lightheartedness and laughter. So hopefully it'll be entertaining to some degree as well. But before we dive in, I would ask you to just please take a moment to follow the podcast, give us that 5-star review, and don't forget to check the show notes because we really do try to put valuable links to other resources and great content that you can watch at your leisure. So check those out. Now, let me reintroduce our guest. Whitney Alexander is truly an amazing person. We love her to death. She is a licensed marital family therapist and the owner of the Warren Alexander Group in Stillwater, Oklahoma. We've known Whitney for over 20 years. We went to grad school with her. We trained together. We went through the trenches together. And she has been and remains one of our most trusted colleagues when it comes to referrals and consultations. She's also the guest that's made the most appearances on Therapist Take, and who knows, maybe someday she'll agree to a regular appearance on the show. But she was a guest on two of our most popular episodes, episode 10, which is the 3 channels of self-awareness, and also episode 32, where we talk about complex PTSD. We are thrilled to have her back, so without further ado, Whitney, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Yeah.
I told you I have a lot of cousins, so that's what I think the extra people watching.
Oh, yeah.
Just a big
Yeah.
family,
Yeah.
really big family.
Well, that's good.
That's good.
You bring them with you.
So this episode is actually your brainchild in a way, right?
Well,
So,
I mean, I've been loving the content you guys have been putting out with your podcast. The last couple ones have just been, I just have loved them. I've shared them with my clients. It ends up being a lot of things that there's a lot of questions around what it's like or what our experience is like as a therapist. I think for a lot of reasons, which is kind of why I wanted to do this. But I just thought it kind of fit with all the things you guys have really been addressing. So,
Right.
yeah.
Great. Well, it's probably going to be one of the most vulnerable discussions we've had, so we're going to have to self-regulate a little bit and breathe. So if you hear us going exactly
Like
what
that,
you're doing.
yeah.
Okay, we're going to say this and put it out there.
If you hear us counting, box breathing.
Yeah. And if you were listening to this episode or watching it, and then all of a sudden you didn't finish it, and then you go back to it, and it's not there all of a sudden.
Yeah. Hit me.
We had a vulnerability hangover.
Yeah, we
like,
decided.
We're just done.
That means we
taking
were
that off.
reviewing it,
Yeah.
and we're like, we can't put
I
this
can't
out.
do
We
that
can't
again.
do this.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
And so that means only 5 people will have seen it.
Only
and,
Whitney's cousins were
no.
to see
Only
it.
a couple of
Yeah.
the chosen cousins.
Yeah.
Right.
They did the dirty delete.
That's
is what they call it.
Dirty delete.
Well, we're so happy to have you do this again, and you can do the. In my view, you could come down every Friday and do this
Yeah.
with us
We
if
got
you
to run
wanted
that
to.
by the big guy.
The
Yeah.
big guy, and I may have
Which
a
we
different
determined
opinion.
is not
did determine
Jesus.
it's
Not
Jesus.
Jesus.
But in fact, my husband.
Can we talk about something for a second?
How my husband is like Jesus?
No. Carrie knows
Because you've
about
just
this.
disagreed with that, so yeah.
So when we were discussing this episode through text,
Oh, here it is. I know what he's
I
gonna
sent
say.
this really long, funny text that had a whole song parody, and all I got was the ha-ha emoji from you, and then you just moved on
Straight
from it,
to
like,
business.
Oh, yeah.
and I feel like you did that on purpose.
No, I didn't do it on purpose, but I will tell you that, my interns consistently tell me that on text messages I am terrifying. Like, I think I just move into all business.
Oh, yeah.
And when I'm all business, I'm all business, and there's no fooling around. There's no
Yeah.
fun. Like, I can't mix them very well. So they all are like, I'm really glad
Yeah.
we like meet with you during supervision, and we see you at other times, because if text Whitney is really terrifying.
Do you remember the thing I texted?
Something,
What?
something about, oh God.
I said,
what
"Are you
was it?
ready? Are you ready to come down to do the
Yeah.
podcast?" And you said, "Tell me when." And all I heard was
Tell me
Backstreet
when.
Boys.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Tell me why. Right? And so I created this whole chorus line, or this whole stanza of
And you were
Backstreet
singing
Boys.
it in your head, yes.
And I
You
wrote
were
it down
proud
on
of yourself
text. I
to do
even
that.
put a little
Yeah, a music
music
note. I saw that.
emoji. Yeah.
The other thing is, sometimes when I'm answering text messages, I'm doing like 7 other things.
Well, sure.
And they don't get my full
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
And I think I might have been guilty of that.
And then
right there.
Yes.
her very next text was something like,
Ha.
"So when are we going to do this?"
Yeah, so what date?
So
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
get this thing
Business,
scheduled. I
like
have
she just said.
It's almost
four
like in my
minutes
mind, I
between
could see like
clients
like
to
if,
put this on
Yeah,
the schedule.
Yeah. Okay, we did get.
all right. So what we're going to do is that as we go through each point on the screen, if people are watching this, you're going to see the point that we're going to talk about, plus kind of an icebreaker question that we're going to talk, and that's how we're going to start out each section. So I mean, we are impacted in. I think we're impacted in more. At least I'll speak for myself in more positive ways. Like what I've gained from and learned from my clients is far greater than the negative impacts it had on me. But there are some things that makes life harder for us, which we're going to get into all that. And then there are some things that are a little haunting for us at the same time. And so, because as we're going to talk about in closing, we are human beings doing this work. So, all right. So now let's get into the first one. When the client's story hits home. And so the ice-breaking question is, have you ever suddenly found yourself desperately needing to take your own advice? Like in session, like where you're hearing yourself talk and you're like, I need to do that.
Yeah, sure.
Oh my gosh, it's annoying. Yeah, but definitely.
Yeah, and then you have that part of you that pushes that stuff aside, that goes, yeah, but not right now.
Right.
You know,
Or,
which
we're
is-
supposed to be here for you
Right,
now.
right. It's
Right.
all about them, selfish, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's funny that you guys say that, because do you ever go, oh, what? Did I miss something just now? Because I was into my stuff
Yes.
for a second.
Yes.
Right. And I know I have that's kind of the trigger for me of knowing that they just hit something for me because I just kind of left their stuff and went into mine.
Right. Something, it's like
You
a
know, and
thought
I'm like-
bubble. Yeah.
Do you ever feel like when that happens, like like something happens to your eyes, like
Oh, I'm sure.
like did they see that? Did my pupils
It
dilate
has to
just
do
now?
that,
Or
right?
like,
Or you're looking off to one
Right,
side or the
yeah.
other.
Right. Right. Especially the clients that have been with you for a long time.
Oh,
They
yeah.
probably can sense it.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
and being an EMDR therapist, like watching people's eyes
Yeah.
is such a part of it. But like, I just know when somebody had a thought that, carried
Oh,
them
yes, for sure.
somewhere.
Right.
And so I can't imagine that I don't do the exact same thing.
Right. Right.
Right.
Although we weren't, I mean, our training wasn't like a psychoanalyst in the sense that we're supposed to be, you're supposed to present complete neutrality, right? I mean, our training,
Right.
thank goodness, Whitney, there's no way, right? This just is not possible for you.
No, my face
but
says it all.
face says it all. So at least we could say that we've been trained and we work with what's happening with us. However, these are not two friends in the room with mutuality, right?
Right.
And so when it hits home and you have that thought of, oh, geez,
Like, I really need to be doing some
That's
reflecting
my-
statements with my husband
Right,
these
right.
days. Or,
Boy.
Right,
that
right.
disagreement
I need
this
to-
morning
Yeah.
would
Right.
have been better served if
Yeah.
I had done what I just suggested
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
might want to do.
yeah, hypocrite,
Yeah.
I mean, my inner critic is real good at saying that, right?
Right.
So when we have those moments, at least I don't feel like, I'm supposed to always be so neutral.
Right. Yeah. So in training in grad school and stuff, we talked about self-a-therapist, and they warned us about this, right? They said, like,
Yes.
you're going to be sitting across from someone, and then it's going to be like you're sitting across from yourself. And sometimes that's just one session. Sometimes it's one moment. Sometimes it's the whole darn time.
Yeah.
and it does kind of, require you to be effective. It kind of requires you to kind of process through that because, and I think that's a growth opportunity for us.
Yeah, I do
I think of
too.
it as
Right.
accountability.
Yeah.
Right? It is,
Yes.
if I am not being accountable for doing my own work, it will show in the room, right? The person that comes in that's either struggling with something you're struggling with, or is saying something that just keeps pulling you away. To be a good therapist, and I really want desperately to be there for my clients and to be able to
Yeah,
be what
sure.
they need, you are held accountable to do your own work. And if you don't do it, your work will suffer, your clients will suffer, and that's just not okay for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did supervision last night at Oklahoma Christian.
You got it, or were the
I
supervisor?
oversaw the
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
oversaw the clinic night. So people who aren't aware, a lot of training facilities like the one we went to and the one that I just referenced, when they train their therapists, they have clinic nights on site where they, in this case, it's really different what we had. By the way, like we had like the one way mirrors and had the headphones that we hooked up to. Is pitch black in the room. Theirs is like a room kind of like we're in, and there's a TV and it's being watched on cameras. And I basically work
Is
the.
it like Mystery Science Theater?
Yeah, it's definitely really different than.
Oh, man, my
I
ADHD.
haven't decided yet, which I like better. But
Yeah.
but and then but they still do the mid session break. So when
Is
you're
there only one session going on at a time?
oh no,
Oh, so are they just flipping channels?
no, I flip them.
Oh,
I work it from a computer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can put multiple ones on the screen and things like that. You can only hear one at a time.
It's like
but-
watching 4 sporting events
Yeah,
at once,
yeah.
right? It's like March Madness.
Yeah.
But they are still required to mid-session to come in and consult with their supervisor, which was me.
Halftime.
And this, I can't remember if it was in the break or before or after session when I was talking to one of the therapists, and she had a self-therapist moment where she's like, "This person's like me," and as I'm helping her with figure out what to do with this client, and I'm saying you kind of help her, look at patterns and things like that. I remembered she said this person's like me. She made no indication that she was in her stuff or anything like
Right.
that. But I stopped for a second and I'm like, are you wondering right now, like, oh, do I do that? Or is that how she goes, that's absolutely what I was doing right now. It's like, well, this will be an opportunity for you then. So,
Yeah.
and she did great, by the way.
Good.
So, so that's just, like that happens to us still to this day, I tell you one thing that happened. Does this ever happen to you guys where, okay, you're working with someone and their stuff is at least similar to your stuff, and then you're helping them, and then they're doing better than you on their stuff,
Again, accountability.
Yeah, yeah.
and you're a little like, man, that was good,
Writing that one down.
Glad you're getting help.
Your horse is ahead of mine. Yeah.
That's never happened to me, Josh.
Yeah, I know,
Whitney's
I know.
always the picture
I'm
of
all right.
If
excellence.
you
I'm
both were
always
like,
winning
that's
on
never
that
happened to me.
one.
It's just a Josh thing.
Just
I
Josh,
guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, though, the stuff that, like you said, the story hits home doesn't always even have to be about, oh, that's familiar to
Right.
me,
Right.
right? I've lived that, I've walked that path. Sometimes it's like, it's just a commonality of a feeling experience or some kind of, inner struggle. And so
Yeah.
I think that a lot of new clinicians are, trying to identify the tough stuff, or maybe even the clients or populations that they don't think they would do well with. But there's no way to think I won't have these moments.
Well, and if I can dive even deeper, a theme that I keep seeing that really, like, it could come up with any story. It's not even a story. It's a way of living life. Is there has been so much lately of what I would consider to be really strong. They're mostly women that I'm working with. Strong women who are tired of being strong, right? And so when we're connecting to this concept of like, okay, what's, in EMDR, we identify the negative cognition and the positive cognition. Like, they can very easily say, I am strong, I can handle this. That's not the trauma right now.
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh, like that one is just like right there. Like,
Right.
I don't know, like it really, again, it holds you accountable. You hold space for that, you recognize
Right.
it, and it's that story hits home.
Yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of that same type of work with partners that have been, betrayed through some form of infidelity. Where Carrie and I have often talked about how, they're some of the strongest women we've ever met on this planet. But kind of the thing that we address with them is that what that means is being weak and injured is not in your wheelhouse.
That's right. And you don't know what to do with
And
it.
now's and
paralyzing.
the time calls for you to be injured, and hurt.
Yeah.
And it's just
No.
so hard, and
Well, and I think
And so-
sometimes it's what I see a lot of times is where's my support? Who's there for me?
Right.
And again, as a working mom, as somebody who does not live in the same town as any of, grandparents or anything like that, you just, it really hits home. Like you really have to do your work around. I get all of that. How have I done the work to walk myself through what's on the other side, so that when they are talking through those things, you're not like, oh my gosh.
well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, like, in that I honestly, and I'm,
I told you it was going to be vulnerable.
this is what, there, in my view, from my very short time on this planet, I'm very young.
Very young.
I don't know anybody who works harder than women as a whole on this. And I used to say that about my dad. My dad is one of the hardest working people I've ever met. Growing up, I mean, the guy was just a machine. But my mom was too. And then when I got married, I'm like, I can't even get close to outworking my wife. Like, so I don't even try now.
Sure,
You've
she's
let
real happy
yourself
about
off that hook. Yeah.
Carrie, like, can work me into the ground, And but I was on the phone with my mom the other day, and I was talking about my sister, and I was like, I really do think like she probably takes the crown. She is probably the hardest working person I have ever met in my life. That girl is always doing something,
And when you've done the work, I think from the outside looking in, if you haven't done the work, it's like, well, you're strong enough, you can handle it. And you think that is the intervention to tie a person to, and that
And
is
that's
not
the opposite.
even close
Right.
to
It's
it.
actually,
I
it's
know.
actually now.
Yeah.
Now it's almost like it's
Yeah,
against
I know
me.
I can handle it, and I'm resentful that I've had to handle it, and I'm
Yeah.
resentful that
Yeah,
there's that
Brene
village
Brown
is not
talks a
there
lot
for
about
me.
that,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so
She tells that story about like how I think when she was having her first book signing, and I think it was a story related about how she started to actually sample in her research, include men in her samples, because she said she had a dad that showed up at the book signing,
yes,
and
that's convenient,
and he said
right?
like right
Yeah.
when he said that's convenient that you only sample women, and then he said, you see those three girls over there or something like that, I'd rather die on top
They'd
of my
rather
white.
me die on my
Oh, really?
white
So
horse.
okay.
Yes, they would rather me die on my white horse
Than to see me
than
fall off
to
of
see
it.
me be vulnerable, to fall off of it.
Right.
And that one doesn't dovetail
Yeah.
with my issues, but I get it.
Right.
Right.
Well, she talks about how, for women, they have to deal with a lot of things. Like there are so many different things coming at them. And then on top of that, you got to deal with it with a smile on your face, right? And she's like, and men have to deal with this one thing, this white horse phenomenon. And and the reason why I chuckle at it is I'm like, it's a big thing,
It's a big
guys.
horse.
Like our one thing is huge.
It is.
Like,
It is.
it
And
is
the more
huge.
you
but-
get, the more you have, like you don't have to work to like get yourself to what you need to do to help that client.
Right.
The easier it is to put our therapist hats on. But
Yeah.
today, the reason I kind of pitched this to Josh was just a recognition that if it fits with something that we ourselves are struggling with, and or we are just struggling, period, it is harder to get to what you guys talked about in the last episode. All those things that we have
Noticing
to
all those
hold
things, yeah.
to be a good therapist.
Right. Yeah.
Very true.
100%. Yeah.
Very true.
Good. Okay, well, let's get to the second one. This is the weight we carry, and we're going to talk about on this one, vicarious trauma and compassion fatigue. So here's the question. Our icebreaker question is, what is your go-to guilty pleasure after a long day of heavy sessions? Who wants to go first?
I disappear into my room and put a book on my headphones.
Okay.
Oh, that is so healthy.
That is pretty
I
healthy.
don't know if the big guy would agree.
I love now we just
Or my husband.
Jesus says, "What are you listening to?"
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I love to listen to audiobooks, and when I've just been
Yeah.
I don't know, I've been holding space for people all day, and I'm exhausted. I can't even converse very well about normal things. I kind of need to just,
Yeah.
Check out.
yeah.
Yeah. I like your checkout one though.
You can try it. It's
Mine's
good
TV
stuff.
and it's TV and food, but particularly chips.
Oh yeah,
Salty,
salty.
delish. What's the favorite chip?
Don't make me do this.
Please.
This is too
mine,
vulnerable.
Mine is nacho cheese Doritos.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Well, if
Oh, or salt and
It's-
vinegar.
my
Oh, it's
wife loves
going.
salt and vinegar. See, that sounds more grown up though. That's a grown up. The
Wait.
Cape Cod salt and vinegar
Yeah,
chips.
but you
and
eat
the
too many, it'll inside of
No,
your
I'm
mouth
like-
goes
Starts to-
completely
yes,
raw.
you
It
I
just
want
changes.
Doritos and
Holes are just
salsa.
sticking out.
Ooh, that sounds good
Doritos
though.
and
Yeah,
salsa.
no, but if I had to pick, like if I had my choice, it would be, because usually I just go to watch if there's something in the cabinet, Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
Oh
Oh, that's
boy.
lovely. I feel like that's grown up.
Yeah. But one thing I've had to do because my kids,
Do you have to hide them?
it doesn't work.
Oh.
They
No,
find
they
them,
find 'em.
right?
See?
So I had to
My
pick
dad had
something they don't
Fruit
like,
Loops.
so I went with,
Yeah, what'd you pick? Takis?
this is the vulnerable part.
Oh,
No, it's hockey. I can't do this.
Okay.
My wife goes, you can't do. She's like, I said, we need to stop eating chips. We need to stop buying them. She's like, well, what if I just bought Takis? I was like, I thought I wouldn't eat them, but I was in here on the
Pull
couch. And I ain't
hard.
lying. I'm not lying. I
believe
went to
you.
do my TV thing, and they were blue. Like, look
Yeah,
like.
I mean that's
There's-
disgusting.
there's nothing
that's
real
not
in it.
allowed in
There's
Europe,
nothing
I
real.
I was like,
No.
it's the only
Europe does
chip
not
we
say
got.
okay, blue
Only
Takis.
American
So
food.
what I settled on though that none of them like are pork rinds,
I love pork rinds.
Ugh.
but I'll only do it with
Oh my
queso.
God. No, I love
I can't.
it.
I can't do them by
I
themselves.
can't eat either
but-
of
I
those.
used to eat
But
with
I'm like,
guacamole.
I'm not crazy about them, but I'm like,
But neither
the
are
kids
they.
won't touch them.
Yeah. It's
So
the only thing you have.
yeah,
That's
especially
why
when
I
you tell
started
them
doing
that they're actually
audiobooks,
made from
because if I
pigskins.
watch TV, then they'd
Yeah.
flock to me,
Yeah.
and then I'd have to
Explain
edit
what
it,
you're watching.
right? No,
Right.
Well, you come in, you got earphones
anything
in,
I
you're
watch
like,
with naughty
hear
words.
you.
They're like, you're
Oh.
not supposed to say that. So I just put my headphones in, and they don't know what I'm listening
That's
to.
true.
They can't listen to it.
They're
It's
not
my
literally not a
own-
part.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's my own thing. So
I
it's
know.
funny that we had to change our guilty pleasures so that our children don't ruin them.
Don't take them from you. I know. That is
Carrie,
true.
what's yours?
Well, I mean, I told Josh earlier, a wine, maybe, right? But that's not during the week. So I do the same thing with screens, though, but I like to put something on the television that I don't have to pay too much
Yes.
attention to, you know?
Yeah, my
So
wife does
a
that, too.
sporting event that I'm not that interested in, or a show that I've seen, or news that's not too intense. And then after about 8:30, 9, that's when I start playing Tetris on my phone.
Oh,
I
there
love
it is.
Tetris.
Yeah, I love Tetris. I played it on my Game Boy that I got when I was
Yes.
10, you
Yeah,
know?
black and white too.
Black
probably,
and
huh?
white. And I really like, I mean, and it's just a way I'm doing things, but I'm not doing
Yeah.
anything. And I'm in a little corner and I have a blanket and a pillow and
I mean, it's almost hard after. Like sometimes I have 8-session days, so I'll see people.
Yeah, me- Josh
8
and I too.
sessions, and then my lunch is
Yeah.
a working lunch.
Yeah,
like
sure.
I do
Yeah.
Write your notes,
consultation
return your-
no
oh.
supervision during
Yeah.
lunch. No, I write my notes right after session.
Oh,
4 minutes done.
Oh wow, you're,
Um,
she
on
is
top of it. Even
the poster
efficient.
child of health.
No, I don't.
Mental
That's
health.
not health. That's just
Right.
efficiency. That's survival.
That's also
survival
But like
efficiency.
I can't even hold like my husband will just be like trying to have a normal conversation like guess what somebody told me today. I'm like like my headphones are in. Oh wait, let me
Yeah.
push pause on this
Oh,
book.
and you're annoyed to press pause. Yeah.
What did they say? You know, like they don't. My clients don't see
Like
that.
I'm playing Minesweep.
Yeah, God.
Remember that one?
Oh, of course. Can see it right now.
Yeah. Well, so we're talking about this because our sessions, we have some heavy days. Many times I come home and I'll just tell my wife, I was like, I just had a rough day or a rough ending to my day based upon just, you get, 2 or 3 clients back to back, or they're all in crises, or
Right.
it's just you're doing some deep trauma work, or
Yeah.
and there's some clients have some amazing stories, but a lot of what makes them so amazing is the resiliency from the trauma they bounce back
Yeah.
from,
Yeah. For sure.
and that they carry with them, and so there is a something we call compassion fatigue, which I think people listening to this probably can get a good idea what that means. A lot of healthcare providers, not just in the mental health world, deal with it. But the one I really want to get you guys' thoughts on is the vicarious trauma one, because I think I deal with that, and I feel like I know how it manifests. My wife knows, and like the self-awareness thing is huge. The episode 10 is what I say, Whitney's episode, first one she was here on.
Yes.
It's a great episode. Go watch it. But how do you guys see it manifesting for you? Like, the way you see the world is a little bit different,
Definitely. Yeah. How I interact with some systems is different.
right?
The legal system being a good example, like just this awareness of how there's some blind spots based on experiences.
Right.
Are there things, like, I was just thinking, like, are there things as a therapist that we may make different choices than a lot of other people for our kids? And I worked primarily with like troubled teens early in my, and so I was always like, I don't know if I'm going to let my kids go to the movies, because the kids were all lying at the very beginning of my career and saying we're going to the movies, and then they were engaging in these things that would make any parent's toes curl.
Sure,
So I'm
sure.
just like, listen, if I let my kids go to the movies, I'm just gonna like straight up
Sit in the
like
back
kick
row.
open the door about halfway through and be like, Alexander boys,
Right.
who wants
Yeah.
some Twizzlers? Just checking.
Just checking. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I always say is that, and you've probably heard me say this, is like, for therapists, like, the things that never happen every day in our lives.
Yes.
Right. And so if people can imagine that, like, it's not every day someone loses a child.
Right.
It's not
Right.
every day someone's partner dies, or someone's mom or dad dies when they're still in their 20s or their
Right.
30s. Right.
That's right.
But in our world, these are every day.
Every day.
So if you think about that, like, and how our brains might be reading that, is that the world might be much, much more dangerous than it actually is. And
Well,
if we don't recognize that,
if I can take a tiny IFS
Sure.
detour, I think it informs our managing, right? It informs our managers. We develop things that we do differently. I'm thinking my sister is a surgeon, and she primarily works with cancer survivors. And she has always been like, she takes really great vacations. Like, that is her managing. She's like, life is not, like, we think we're all afforded a long life. And she's like, I see every day that
Sure.
that doesn't happen. And one of
Yeah.
her managing strategies is she takes fantastic, amazing vacations, which, again, that's awesome. What?
see, we take less.
Right. I know we do less, but like, that's an example of like how we manage
Yeah.
some of the weight that we carry from our jobs.
Right.
Sure. Sure.
But, like, to that point, like, one of the things I say, like, how it's impacted me, and speaking of vacations, like, if we were going to take the kids to the lake, all I see in the beginning is just all the bad things that can happen.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And I have to really work at regulating that.
Yeah.
And so when I say, like, we take less vacations, it's because, let's just stay
Let's be safe.
safe and controlled.
Safe
And
zone.
the
And
idea of
feeling-
staycations
Oh,
sounds
yeah, that
much more appealing to me than it ever has before in my life.
I remember talking about riding the bus with my husband, and I'm like, are you joking that we would let our kids ride the bus? He goes, yeah, I had a great time riding the bus. All I can think of are all the bullying stories and
Yeah,
all of the
from the
terrible
bus.
Sure.
stories that kids trace back to being on the friggin' bus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
and I'm
yeah.
sure there were wonderful
Yeah.
experiences with lots of people,
Right.
i.e. even
Right.
the
Well,
person
the
I
one-
was talking to.
The one for me is that to this, which I don't have to do it anymore because my kids are older now, but the whole time through, I had to just let my wife do this part.
I know what you're gonna say.
And it
We
was
talked about it.
babysitters.
Yeah, that's one of the
Yes.
hardest for me, too.
Female babysitters. I can't tell you how many grown men older than me, and I'm 45 years old, that have sat across from me sobbing from the abuse
Oh, yeah.
of female babysitters.
That's right.
Yep.
And so I
I
can't do
can't
it.
be objective here.
you're just gonna, I said, like, you're just gonna have to do it because I get that when it comes to that particular thing, I go completely irrational.
Yeah.
The
with it.
trauma, I mean,
Yeah.
the vicarious trauma is real.
Yeah.
That
in
is
those
real.
cases.
That's what you can feel it too.
That's
of like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'll just stay home. I'll
That's
just
right.
work my schedule around grandma.
Yeah, we carry that, and I tell students coming in, people are asking about being a therapist. Like, don't, we joke around too. Like, I'm in a female-dominated profession. I always joke around about that I had to really embrace my inner woman, But and this isn't to say that men are strong and women are weak, but in terms of like I don't know if it's an antidote or a remedy to like toxic male masculinity. So any guys listening to this out there, this is by far one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
Well, we want to
I grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
right? We want to fix, right? All of us want to
Yeah.
fix, but I think
Yeah.
men get more connected to their fixer parts because their emotions and
Right.
hanging with emotions aren't as aren't as
Rewarded
developed.
and aren't
Yeah.
established.
And so it's the hardest ones we carry are the ones where the fix is just being present and letting our clients know they're not alone in the struggle. Like
Right.
I always tell people, we need two things in childhood. We need safety and we need nurturing. And if we don't get both of those things, there will be some work that has to be done. And so sometimes it's the nurturing piece that I'm providing in that moment, and there is nothing else. There's nothing I can say or do to make that situation any better. And I have to sit with the powerlessness of it, of my feelings and their feelings, and that's what makes people want to jump into advice giving, right? Well, have you tried? Have you looked at? Have you? These people are wise people. They've done all of that. They are not asking you to come up with a solution for what to do with their problem.
Right.
They're sharing their pain, and we just have to be in it. And that is hard when you're doing that for multiple hours a day.
Right, 100%. Yeah.